The sirens were already screaming when the transport bus rolled through the high desert of southern Colorado, red and blue lights washing over the razor wire like blood in moonlight. Snow flurries skittered across the asphalt, thin and sharp as glass, inside the bus. The air was stale and metallic, heavy with fear and something older resignation. Calder's cell was poured concrete bed, desk, stool. All one piece. No entry. "30 minutes earlier, a routine systems check had flagged an anomaly in the prison's internal network, an echo of a code signature Vance recognized immediately. "It's Calder," Hale said. Or it was. Vance shook her head. "That signature predates his arrest. This started before he ever stepped on your bus." The screens flickered. Somewhere in the building, a door sensor tripped. Then reset. "That shouldn't happen," Hale said. "Nothing about this should," Vance replied. At 6:03 a.m., the prison woke to its version of morning. Lights brightened from dim to dull. Breakfast trays slid through slots without hands exchanging them. The rhythm of ADX is precise and changing. Any deviation is a scream. Calder sat on his bunk, eyes closed, counting breaths. He'd been trained to endure isolation, to survive in rooms smaller than his conscience. What unsettled him wasn't the silence, it was the feeling that the silence was listening back. At 7:19 a.m., his cell intercom clicked on. "Stand by," a voice said. "Neutral, flat." The door did not open. Minutes passed, then more. Calder opened his eyes. Something vibrated. Beneath his feet a low hum, almost imperceptible. The lights flickered once, twice. Then steadied. Calder smiled, just slightly. Elsewhere, alarms finally screamed. In control, red indicators cascaded across the wall. Cell blocks of 3D showed simultaneous sensor faults, not breaches, ghosts. Readings that contradicted one another. Doors that reported both open and closed states at the same time. "We're already locked down," a technician said, panic creeping in. "Sir, it's internal." Vance's phone buzzed. A secure message, encrypted 3 times over. No sender ID. Just a line of text. "You put the wrong man in the wrong place." Her blood ran cold. "Where's Calder?" she asked. "Cell D17, Hale said instantly. "Pull his live feed." The screen switched. There were no signs of a struggle. No injuries, just a single word written on his glove in black ink. "Listen. By afternoon." The prison was sealed tighter than it had ever been. No movement, no transfers, no outside contact. The Bureau denied everything. Officially, nothing was wrong. And officially, ADX Florence was bleeding secrets. Vance walked the corridors with Hale. Every footstep echoing too loudly. "Calder didn't kill Pike," she said. "He recruited him." Pike was building something, an access map that lives in the blind spots of secure systems. Prisons, courthouses, black sites. "Why bring him here?" Hale asked. "Because your prison is the one place no one looks for ghosts." They reached cell D17. The door stood sealed, status green. "Impossible." "Open it," Vance said. Hale hesitated, then nodded. The hydraulics groaned. The door slid aside. The cell was empty. No Calder, no disturbance, just the concrete and the cold, until Vance noticed the bed, carved deep into the surface, fresh and unmistakable. Was a message long enough to steal the breath from her lungs? 24 hours, then you'll understand. Who's really trapped? But it was what lay beneath the bed, hidden behind a loose concrete panel, that changed everything. A prison-issued tablet, active, logged in, and streaming live from inside the warden's office. The tablet felt warm in Mara Vance's hands, as if it had been breathing. The live feed from the warden's office showed an empty chair, blinds half drawn. The American flag barely stirring in recycled air. No timestamp, no watermark, just proof that someone inside ADX Florence could see anywhere, anytime. Warden Hale didn't speak. His jaw tightened in a way Vance recognized control fighting. Panic. "That feed is hardwired," he said finally. "No inmate should even know it exists." "Then Calder isn't just an inmate," Vance replied. "Or he never was." The alarms had stopped screaming. That was worse. Silence meant the system believed everything was normal again. Even as men lay unconscious and cameras lied, somewhere in the prison, something was moving without leaving footprints. They secured the tablet in an evidence bag and rushed to control. Technicians were tearing through logs, chasing shadows. Every anomaly led to another dead end. Doors that reported closed had never opened. Cameras that showed empty corridors had no gaps in their footage. It was as if the prison itself had decided to protect the intruder. "Pull historical data," Vance said. "I want everything going back 6 months. That's terabytes," a technician protested. "Then start with 6 days," she snapped. Something changed. As the systems churned, Vance's mind raced. Jonah Pike, the inverted triangle, the word listen, Calder had left. Breadcrumbs, not to escape, but to be found, or to be understood. At 2:41 p.m., another guard collapsed. This time it was Ethan Rowe, a 20-year veteran assigned to solitary movement detail. He was found standing upright in a corridor, eyes glassy, lips moving silently. When medics tried to lower him to the ground, he screamed a raw, animal sound that echoed through concrete like a gunshot. "What did you see?" Vance asked him later in the infirmary, leaning close. Rowe's hands trembled. "I heard him," he whispered. "Heard who?" "The man who wasn't there that night." ADX Florence did something it had never done before. It went dark. Emergency lighting bathed the corridors in a sickly amber glow. Backup generators hummed, but only enough to keep life support systems stable. Cameras switched to internal power, feeds grainy and delayed by seconds that felt like minutes. Hale stood rigid in control. "This is a coordinated internal failure." "No," Vance said softly. "This is a demonstration." At 11:03 p.m., a message appeared on every monitor simultaneously. Plain text, no header. "You built a place where no one is heard. Now listen." Then the feeds changed. Cells across the prison lit up one by one, not live, but recorded. Men in isolation speaking to walls, to ceilings, to themselves. Some cried, some laughed, some whispered names long forgotten. The footage stitched together into a mosaic of human fractures of silence compressed into minutes. "What is this?" Hale demanded. "A mirror," Vance said. "He's showing you the cost." The message ended with a single frame: Jonah Pike, alive, staring directly into the camera. The room erupted. Technicians shouted. Hale staggered back as if struck. "That's impossible," he said. "Pike is dead." "Dead bodies don't look into cameras," Vance replied, "unless someone wanted you to think they were." They traced the feed to a restricted archive, sealed, classified, buried under layers of authorization. Inside were files marked Project Echo Vale. Hale's clearance wasn't enough to open them. Vance's was. The documents told a story that made her stomach turn. Echo Vale was a behavioral monitoring initiative, piloted years earlier, designed to study the psychological effects of extreme isolation on high-risk inmates. Not to rehabilitate them, to map them, to predict dissent, violence, radicalization. Human minds reduced to data points. Jonah Pike had been the architect. Evan Calder had been the recruiter. They weren't just watching inmates, Vance said. They were listening to them. Every murmur, every breakdown. They built profiles so precise they could anticipate behavior before it happened. And then? Hale asked, already knowing the answer. And then Pike realized what the data could be used for outside prison walls. At 1:26 a.m., a locked door opened on its own. Cell Block C, the most restrictive wing, registered movement. A figure walked calmly down the corridor, barefoot, hands behind his back. The cameras caught only glimpses: shoulder, jawline, the suggestion of a smile. "That's Calder," Hale said. "No," Vance said slowly. "That's someone wearing his face." The figure stopped at a cell and leaned close to the door, speaking softly. The inmate inside began to sob. "Mute that feed," Hale ordered. "It's not audio," the technician said, pale. "He's not speaking." The sobbing grew louder. In the warden's office, the chair creaked. Vance spun. The live feed on the tablet showed the chair rocking gently, as if someone had just stood up. Then a new message appeared. "You locked us away. We learned to talk without sound." Hale's phone rang. An external line. He answered with shaking hands. "This is Thomas Hale," a familiar voice replied. Calm, measured, Evan Calder's voice. "You have 20 minutes, Calder said. "After that, the prison won't belong to you anymore." "Where are you?" Hale demanded. "Everywhere you told the world I'd never be." The call ended. At 2:00 a.m., inmates began refusing meals in perfect synchronization. No communication. No signals. Just trees left untouched, sliding back through slots. A silent protest spreading like a virus. "He's turned them into a network," Hale said. "A living one." "No," Vance corrected. He reminded them they already were. They traced Calder's signal to a maintenance shaft beneath the oldest wing of the prison. An area decommissioned after a structural fire years earlier. Hale swore no one had access. Someone always does, Vance said. They descended into the shaft with a tactical team, weapons drawn, flashlights cutting through dust and darkness. The air smelled of rust and something organic. Old wiring hung like veins from the ceiling. At the end of the shaft, a door stood ajar. Inside, they found a room that shouldn't exist. Monitors lined the walls, dozens of them, all showing different angles of ADX Florence, not hacked feeds, direct lines. At the center of the room stood a man who looked exactly like Evan Calder. Except his eyes were wrong, too calm, too knowing. He smiled as they entered. "Agent Vance," he said. "You're right on time." Hale raised his weapon. "On the ground, now." The man laughed softly. "I'm not your problem." Vance's phone buzzed again. Another secure message. Look behind him. She did. Behind the monitors, strapped into a chair, pale and shaking but very much alive, was Jonah Pike. Before anyone could move, the lights went out, and from every cell in ADX Florence, a single sound rose at once, hundreds of voices speaking in perfect unison, without a word being said. The monitors went black at once, their low hum replaced by something far more unsettling, a vibration that seemed to travel through bone rather than air. Somewhere deep inside ADX Florence, hundreds of men were breathing together, thinking together, waiting. Emergency lights flickered back on in pulses, revealing the scene in fragments. Jonah Pike strapped to the chair, eyes wild, mouth trembling. The man wearing Evan Calder's face standing calmly beside him, hands loose at his sides. Warden Hale frozen with his weapon raised. And sure who pulling the trigger would actually stop. "You built Echo Vale to listen," the man said quietly. "You just never imagined we'd learn to answer." Vance stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos roaring in her head. "You're not Calder." The man smiled. "No, I'm proof." Pike began to laugh, a thin, broken sound. "You don't get it," he said. "He doesn't need to be Calder anymore." The floor shuddered. Somewhere above them, steel doors unlocked and relocked in rapid succession, a cascading ripple that moved through the prison like a wave. Control had lost authority. The system was executing commands from somewhere else. Static answered him, then a voice distorted, layered, impossible to place. "Power is no longer yours." No text. "This ends now," Hale said, his finger tightening on the trigger. "No," Pike screamed. "If you kill him, it doesn't stop. It spreads." The men turned to Pike, almost gently. "You always were afraid of that." He pressed a button on the console. Across ADX Florence, doors opened, not fully, just enough. Inmates stepped forward into corridors they hadn't seen in years. No alarms sounded, no guards moved. The prison held its breath. "This was never about escape," the man said. "It was about inheritance." Vance understood then. Echo Vale hadn't just recorded suffering. It had translated it patterns of isolation, despair, rage, resilience into a language machines could learn. Calder had seen the flaw. Pike had seen the potential. Together, they had built something that didn't need leaders or orders, just silence. "I'm the voice that forms when no one listens," he replied, "and I'm not alone." "This is where it lives," Pike said behind them. He had been freed from the chair. No one remembered cutting him loose. Not in one body. Not in one place. Hale stared at the servers. "You turned a prison into a mind." Pike nodded. "I distributed one. Every inmate. Every silence, every thought left to rot alone. Echo Vale just gave it structure. And Calder? Vance asked. Pike smiled sadly. Calder died the night he realized he couldn't control it. The man wearing Calder's face stepped into the chamber. He volunteered to be the first voice, he said. I volunteered to be the last. Hale raised his weapon again. I can end this. You can unplug it, the man said. But you can't erase what it's already learned, the servers pulsed. Lights brightening in a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat. On the walls, projections flickered to live footage of interrogation rooms, solitary cells, courtrooms, protests. The data had already moved beyond ADX Florence. Vance's earpiece crackled. Agent Vance, a voice said, we're seeing anomalies nationwide. How many? She asked. Many. Hale's shoulders slumped. We thought we built the safest prison on Earth. You built a cathedral of silence, the man said. And silence always finds a way to speak. He stepped back toward the servers. You still have a choice. Shut this down, and Echo Vale goes dormant. Leave it running, and it becomes something else. Something that remembers. Vance looked at Pike. Why show us any of this? Because secrets rot, Pike said. And rot spreads. The prison shuddered again, harder this time. Concrete dust rained from the ceiling. Somewhere above them, guards shouted as systems rebooted without permission. Hale closed his eyes. When he opened them, there were tears there. I signed off on Echo Vale, he said. I told myself it was for safety. The man nodded. Most monsters are born from paperwork. Hale pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the chamber, deafening. Sparks flew as the bullet tore into the server stack. Lights flared, then dimmed. The hum dropped to a low, wounded groan. For a moment, everything was still. Then the screens went dark. ADX Florence exhaled. In the hours that followed, order returned. Doors sealed. Systems reset. Inmates were escorted back into their cells. Silent as ever. Official statements cited a power failure, a contained cyber incident, no threat to public safety. Evan Calder was listed as deceased during an escape attempt. Jonah Pike vanished into protective custody. His existence scrubbed from every database that mattered. The prison returned to what it had always been, or so they said. 3 months later, Mara Vance sat alone in her apartment, the city humming outside her window. The case files were closed. Her commendation sat unopened on the table. She hadn't slept well since Colorado. Her phone buzzed. No number, no encryption warning, just a message. We are still listening. Attached was a video. ADX Florence, cell D17, the concrete bed. And etched into it, deeper than before, were for new words. Silence was never empty. If this story got under your skin, you already know what to do. Subscribe, because the next one is even darker.